Hello, everybody. Um, I am still making my second cup of tea, so excuse the couple minutes late. It's steeping. We'll get up to fetch it in a moment, but just wanted to start relatively on time. Good morning. Happy Friday. It is the second Friday. That's right. We're not doing first Fridays and final Fridays anymore only. I'm moving to Wednesdays and Fridays. So some of the Friday streams will be first and finals, and some will just be fun. How about that? It's still a little messy hereabouts. My mouse imploded. It started leaking something that was clear, and then now it's turned white. So I think the batteries just went bad. So I'm doing this. we're working with some things that still need to be moved around and whatnot. But welcome. Happy Fun Friday. And what we're going to do today is tags. We're going to catch up on some lovely community book tags. I've got Get to Know My Taste, which is covering a lot of ground, some of which I've covered in other book tags, of course, but you may not have heard. And the other one is High School Required Reading Tag. And so that will be some fun school age revisiting. So look forward to those. Good morning. Hey, Greg. I promise to do my very best to stay on the main path and not traipse off to the side quests. I don't know if my very best will be good enough. I think we are accepting of side paths, side quests, and ADHD rabbit holes here, so let her rip. Hi, Jim. Good evening. Hello, hello. All right, so the first tag, Get to Know My Taste. This is an original tag created by Samantha at Thoughts on Tomes and Mari at My Name is Mari Inez, who's a huge booktuber. I think I see her more on TikTok than YouTube. And I was tagged by Book Chat with Pat, so thank you, Pat. It's got a lot of questions here, and for one of them, I'm going to pull out something. Oh, no, this is for the next tag. For the next tag, I'll pull out something that I just rediscovered, so that's fun. Okay, so big catchment basin for these questions. And I'm going to get up and get my tea before we start. So if you've done this tag or want to, let me know in the comments. I'm going to grab my tea and be back in 20 seconds. Was that exactly 20 seconds? I'm not sure, but that's what it took for me to get my milk and sugar in my tea. No, I just sent you that because I sent a GIF with the Muppets, which is lovely. All right, Greg has his coffee, so we're going to get started with Get to Know My Taste. The first question, how do you rate books? Give a quick rundown of how you do your star ratings, or if you don't use star ratings, how you evaluate books. Okay, so this is sort of a difficult question because, yes, I use stars. I rate books on Storygraph. I also give a star rating in my planner. Every month I log what I'm reading. Not as long as Jim has been doing, just like since I started Booktube. Not reaching into the last century, which is, I'm very jealous of that consistency. That's pretty awesome. But I'll write down a page before my next, and it'll say books read, and I'll put the star rating down. And on Storygraph, they have elements like, is it emotional? Is it like, I don't even remember now, but there's like 20 to choose from. I don't find those too helpful. I don't look at them when other people put them, so I stopped. I just put the quotes in and my star rating. And the star rating, I don't really consciously equate it to like a statement, but if I had to, it would be 5 stars is um, the the book has made me feel like I learned something, like it was relatable, like the writing was great, like I would read it again in a little while, or like I really felt the person put themselves on the line kind of thing. Like they put everything in the text. So 5 stars is really kind of hard to get. I get a handful of those per year. 4 stars is more common. It's a solid read. It's well researched. It's well built as a world if it's fantasy or historical. It's got some elements that I like humor or character building or historical movements that I really like. And I sort of jostle between like it's really good for the general public or it was a really good fit for me. And because you can't have separate tracks of stars, I sort of like, well, sometimes it's higher on this scale and it's lower on this scale, and sometimes vice versa. But 4-star reads are definitely reads I would recommend to anyone from my channel. 3-star reads are like pretty good, solid effort, well edited, but like either not a hit for me or like lacking in some department, like the characters or the world building or, accuracy, or, maybe it's the typos, something like that. So I would recommend it to some if I knew their taste and I thought, oh, this didn't work for me, but it would definitely work for that person. But it's more of a iffy. And then 2 or 1, I hardly ever give. That means there's something seriously wrong, and like I wouldn't recommend it for someone else to read. It's not just a didn't work for me. It's a wouldn't really recommend it at all. So that's how I pick. But I've been building up the system for 25 years maybe. And so it's all relative and it's sort of by feel. Like I said, I don't have these conscious statements that I put it on a rubric because I'm not a school teacher. I just sort of do it by feel and it's all relative and there's different scales. So it's kind of shifting sands. I'm not concerned with it being too battle accurate. That's what I put in my answer. How do you approach reviewing books? This is question number 2. Oh, let me catch up on the chat so that I understand the comments. Jim does have a system. 5 if I loved it, 4 if I enjoy it, 3 if it was disappointing. See, 3 doesn't sound too bad if you're not in the book world, but 3 stars out of 5, 6 out of 10 is a D in school. So yeah, not really great, but might work for someone else. And rarely rate 1, 2. Oh, so you give stars to DNFs. I think that might be a hot take. I think that might be a little controversial. Sometimes I will rate DNFs and sometimes I will not. So I'm not consistent on that either. Jim has his average rating on Goodreads at his fingertips. It's 3.85, which means you're pretty good at picking books for yourself, which is good. Greg says, I use the Storygraph quarter stars. Yes, so do I, but I'm just leaving it to you to fill in, the degree to which it satisfies those criteria. Great. Jim says, I will use half stars occasionally on my reviews and round them up for Goodreads. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So that's in your fabled notebook. Love it. And then Greg says to Jim, I'm like you. I rarely rate a 1 or 2 because if the book was wrong for me, I'd probably quit reading it. Again, do you rate with stars DNF to books? Life is too short, says Jim, and there are too many great books out there. Yeah. Oh, okay. You don't rate DNFs. So when it says, I rarely rate 1 or 2 as I will probably DNF it. Oh, I understand. Okay. Hi, Kappa. Just realized I forgot to say hi. Hello. Good morning. Happy Friday. All right. Star systems. For Cat Paw, 3 for me is a pass. 4 is very good. 5 is outstanding. We'll probably reread. Excellent. And I don't rate books I DNF. Okay. So we've got a little consensus there. Excellent. Question 2 is, how do you approach reviewing books? What's your review style? Are you analytical, emotional, casual, or structured? Okay, so back when I was 11 or 12, I remember writing a few book reviews for a bookstore that had a newsletter, like a paper in the 90s newsletter. and I got to read the books for free if I wrote the review for the newsletter. It was like a little deal, and I don't imagine there were any fantastically written pieces of writing, but I have never had a book review published in a professional fashion. So I don't know if there's a specific way you're supposed to do it. From the variety of types and formats that I read, I would suggest there isn't. I would surmise there isn't, because people are very creative about how they frame their reviews. So maybe there is no wrong way to do it, except what people prefer. So taking it from that point, if the book got me tabbing, so if Eva comes on, I will remember that she means tabs in books, not tabs in browsers. Then that's a good sign, because that usually means they're important points, and it's nonfiction. Usually, if it's fiction, I won't put tabs in. I will just turn down corners. And the top corner turned down means a good thing. The bottom corner turned up means a bad thing. So if you've seen me like show the edges of a book before and you see more or less top or bottom, that's sort of a review. But yeah, tabs are for nonfiction. I'll go over the best bon mot. The nice little quotes that I like to highlight, I will put in a review if I'm doing an in-depth review like I did for the last 4 or 5 books that were the best in my huge wrap up at the beginning of September. And so like I'll pick out the best, I'll pick out the takeaway points, and then I'll give my overall satisfaction or pleasure with what was offered. So I typically try to do a positive spin, meaning these are the points I appreciated. And if it was really glaring, I'll say, this is what didn't work for me, and sort of leave it at that. But I try not to do any ad hominem arguments or, name calling. I generally don't read things that offend me, so that doesn't come into play. And yeah, I just use my tabs and share them with people. Or again, if it's fiction or not as involved, then I'll just share my overall memory. And usually it's only been within 2 weeks. So I do remember what I read that long. After that, it sort of drops off a cliff, but I can pretty much keep up with that. Jim says, I try to condense my thoughts for a 1-minute review. Yeah, that's a really exacting exercise, I would say. So there's a limit to what I can say. And I feel like you script those very well for your 1-minute reviews. I couldn't do that. Greg says, I review based on how it strikes me. A reader response type of approach. And I usually relate this book to others I have read. Yes. I find that works the best for me with recent reads because, again, they're the closest on the brain pan, right? So that's what I call biblioserendipity when I'm reading or just read several books and they sort of talk to each other. I had that with some very non-related books that I'm reading. I'm reading a book on bread therapy, which is written by an English woman who bakes a lot of bread. And it's basically like how to bake bread, but also how to make it sort of a meditative exercise you can fold into your life and the benefits. And I thought, that's great. And a few of the things she talks about attention, and then the next page was something else. So I had 2 books. I was like, oh, wait, that's like this. That's like this. And so it's biblioserendipity for me. And next week, I'm aiming to get some red yarn and make a big graph, like a murder investigation of the biblioserendipity from Agitation August, because it was intense and it was really cool. And I want to share the nerdery with my channel because I think that's what you guys come here for. So that's fun. Catpod does half stars too in their journal, but not on Amazon. Yeah, because I don't think Amazon allows half stars. And I need to be seriously hacked off with a book to give it a star rating that lowers the already average rating. Interesting. So you're considering others' viewpoints and the average and whether you'll go below. Interesting. All right. Question number 3. What's the book that made you a reader, whether it was your first favorite or the one that got you hooked? What book started it all? And I have several for these. And several of them are not very well known. Some are. So they're all Okay, they're mostly in one category. Let's see if you can pick it out. The first would be The Dream of the Stone by Christina Askunis, which I've mentioned on the channel before. I always forget the title, and I think it's Stone in the Door, but it's not. It's The Dream of the Stone. Many Waters by Madeline L'Engle. Dragon Prince by Melanie Ron. So that's 3. You see the common thread yet? I'll give you a second for the lag and the typing. Share the nerdery, of course, right? That could be my tagline. I love it. Dee Dee's here. I was just on Dee Dee's stream. Awesome. Done with Friday reads. Love it. Now I'm cooking and listening to you. Thank you. Nice to see you. So did you ever determine whether my Monticello is linked stories or standalone? That was hilarious how it kept going back and forth and people had different ideas. Jim says, forget retail therapy. Kneading bread is cheaper, smells better, and only judges you if you forget the yeast. That's great. That's a great line. That's fun. Yeah, so that's one of my current reads. I've been reading it for over a month because I haven't been able to do any of the bread stuff with all the construction and transportation of stuff. But yeah, I'm looking to get into it. Yes. Greg says, when I wrote record reviews, I was much more conscious of writing for a general audience. I focus more on musicality, recording techniques, arrangements, song choices, and order. Oh, fascinating. Okay, yeah, that stuff that doesn't even come into play with books. And like maybe Catpaw would have opinions on that because they're like the sound engineer expert, in my opinion. So feel free to weigh in. Jim says, I have problems remembering some titles. Becky Chambers books take me a long time to remember. They are kind of a long title, right? Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. I see I'm mixing it with something else. So I'm in the same boat. And Greg says, I approached public music reviews very differently from book reviews here on YouTube. Yeah. So if you're doing book reviews, I guess you're saying it's more what I like and what you think other people would like instead of general audience, more objective things so that people can judge because you don't know what their preferences are. Sounds good. Oh, they're not linked. We'll have to dig deeper on my shelves because I'm not using Dream Count. Okay. I don't remember which prompt, if you're using it for a prompt or for a book club, but is it trying to find short stories or is it trying to find a theme that you're looking for? Yeah, maybe folks here would have an idea. All right, so no one has answered the third prompt question, but the first 3 books, The Dream of the Stone, Many Waters, and Dragon Prince, are all fantasy written by women. Hasn't directed any part of my life. And the last one I would say made a big impact a little later is Julie by Catherine Marshall. Catherine Marshall writes historical fiction that is like coming of age. It's not fantasy, but it is very much about like independent women coming into their own. And Christie was the one that was made into a TV series when I was growing up, but I didn't really watch that. But I did really love Julie. And that's how I got into Johnstown and the flood in Pennsylvania and all that subject. So much that I went to visit it after college with one of my friends who lived near there in State College. So kind of this crazy, read a book, loved it, got into the historical fiction and research, went to visit Johnstown after college because of it. So kind of a big influence there. And if you don't know, the Johnstown flood was a big dam that was an earthen dam that the rich people owned and used for hunting and fishing, and they didn't take care of. So they were warned many times, and finally it broke through and it flooded the town below, which was all poor people who were working class. It just killed loads of people, terrible. Like there was a railroad, there was just everything, the debris from behind the dam just like took out everything. It was pretty horrific. But the things that led up to it and the political and the class sort of conflicts were pretty fascinating to me. So yeah, I looked into that as a ghoulish teenager. Question number 4. Do you have a genre niche? Oh, some of you might have opinions on that. Are there certain genres you gravitate toward, or do you read widely across genres? Well, see, I forgot to do my intro at the beginning of this tag. None of you guys need it, but I usually say I'm a historical fiction and fantasy writer and an eclectic reader. And I think on most levels of judging, I'm pretty eclectic. But there's definitely some genres and subgenres that I just like, no, not interested. So I don't read just anything. I think Michael K. Vaughan might read just anything, but I am more of like, okay, I will sample a lot of different things and rotate, kind of like what I cook for myself. But I know what I like, and I've kind of done the experimentation phase, but I know I can still learn new things. It's okay. It's okay. So I went to Storygraph to check if I had a genre niche. It said it in numbers. So I looked at all-time reads because it didn't give me a graph for genres. It just gave me how many. And by far, historical won out. And then it was mystery. And then it was romance. And then it was fantasy. And then it was history. So 4 fiction genres and then history. 3 genres plus historical fiction and history. So that's kind of like my first and my fifth are about history research. And then the 3 in between were fantastical, meaning mystery, romance, or fantasy. So I don't know if that surprises anybody. I don't think it will. Oh, okay. It's a prompt for something bookish reading challenge. I don't know what that is. Is it on Storygraph or is it like a run by a channel? Something bookish. That's very general as a name, so it's not ringing any bells. Sorry. But I do love a reading challenge. So Catpaw says, I learned from another reviewer I appreciated. I could tell from their review if I would enjoy a record or not. Oh, okay. So same about different for records than books. Anita's here. A.F. Stewart, hello, hello, fellow author. I think I watched Christie. It sounds familiar. Yeah, it was kind of like Little House on the Prairie, but instead of kids, she was, I don't know, like 20, and she was a pioneer, and yeah. And in America, I'm pretty sure. But it was like a public TV series. So good morning or afternoon for you. Jim says, reading is subjective. The rating of Moby Dick on Goodreads is 3.56, which is less than Meg. I don't think I know Meg. Is that about an AI thing? 3.77. I don't know what that is. My comfort genres are historical fiction and police procedurals. I heard you mention this on a video recently. Yeah, but I like to venture out of my comfort zones. And Jim says, I've been trying some contemporary romance in the past year and surprised to find I enjoyed some, like role playing. Yay, Kathy Yardley. I think she comes into play later in this tag because I remember writing her name down after doing some scrolling on my story graph. So yeah. I feel like contemporary romance can go in a lot of different directions. It can be just that pejorative term chick lit and like the same formula and some of the tropes that are sort of just recycled, but it can also be addressing themes in personal relationships that really speak to societal issues. And I think Kathy Yardley does a great job with that, where she's taking some things that indicate people who are in a marginalized position in some respect and combining them with like how you talk to people and how you cope and how you find comfort and relate to others. And I just think that's really valuable to think about, read about, turn over in your head, and might be helpful in your life. Just saying. All right, so Catpaw to Q4, not quite as wide and eclectic as you. Don't have the energy to read as much and no library to inspire me. Like I had 3 libraries actually close to where I lived on the Isle of Wight. Oh, wow. I've never been to the Isle of Wight. I've heard some things. But yeah, that's a bummer about libraries in Mexico. I'm sure they have some in bigger cities maybe, but like not where you are. Bummer. Yeah. Someone said recently, imagine if we were trying to start libraries now. Like it would be so terrible. So I'm glad that they already exist for many of us, because they're a great resource. Greg says, my top storygraph genres are classics, literary, historical, mystery, and short stories. Interesting. So we've got 2 that are the same. Nice. Oh, Meg's about a megalodon, a big shark monster book. Okay. Megalodon, is that like a prehistoric shark monster, or is that like a made-up monster? Sounds like a dinosaur. Anita says, I like a variety of reads, but lately I've been gravitating to mystery and historical romance or fantasy. Nice. Yeah. It's interesting because what you write as an author isn't necessarily what you read. And Anita writes like so many different genres, from horror to poetry to mystery to fantasy, and then like combinations of those. So yeah. So maybe you read what you write. Maybe you're like the rare bird. Cat Paw says, some people want to be on first name terms with club bouncers. I was on first name terms with many librarians. Oh, see, that's nice. I wish I had that. But I found that when I go into libraries here in Portland, the main library, the volunteers that you often talk to change every 3 hours, and they're all always different. And so I go in there a lot. Go there in like every week, and for a certain period of time. And it was never the same person that I was talking with. So that didn't really lead to relationship building. And then the smaller one that I go to now, I do see some of the same people who I think are more permanent staff, but they don't seem very, how do I say this? Guard down. They seem pretty like keep it for professional, because I don't want to blur the line, So I want to respect that. This is their place of work. I don't want to try to be chummy and try to cross boundaries. Jim says it's a prehistoric shark, but imagined in the present. Oh, okay. A fun read, but objectively not better than Moby Dick. Okay. Depends, I would say. Didi says, I might need to do this tag. I thought I had, but it doesn't seem so. All right, cool. I'll put you in the description for getting tagged. It's a good one. Jim says, Andrew Carnegie used his millions to build many libraries. I haven't noticed today's mega rich creating libraries. Seriously. Yeah. All right, so that was 4, and question 5. Do you generally prefer character-driven or plot-driven stories? And I'm being very honest with this one. Generally, I like plot-driven stories, but that makes the occasional perfect character-driven story all the more satisfying. I'm just being real. Like, often when I sit down with a fiction book that is a story, I want to sort of be drawn into it and taken out of myself, and that happens more easily with plot-driven books. They can have great characters, but if you have to decide it's one or the other, then I would say plot-driven. But occasionally there's that contemplative frame of mind where I'm just enjoying someone's interior thoughts or the growth or conflict that they're challenging themselves with. So that would be my answer. I hope you don't think less of me. I know there's some like snooty book thoughts out there that may not agree with that, but that's what I do. Question 6, what's a book you love so much that you don't care if others don't like it? What's that one book you love enough for everyone? I thought this was a fun question. So I know not everyone loves Babel. I love it. I love it so much. R.F. Kuang is the author, and it's had a lot of big thumbs up and like big thumbs down. People like couldn't finish after the first 20 pages or whatever. And I was just like, because I mean, I can understand it's pretty arcane, abstruse, whatever you want to call it. And it's dealing with a time period not many people are familiar with, the 1830s in Oxford, and a little bit in the far reaches of the British Empire in Asia. But I have studied this 10-year period. And so the fact that the author had to like zero in on these factors, took the bigger ones that also relate to today, which I try to do, and like made this super epic story with magic and friends and, a fight for good. And I found it to be so inspiring. And so I love it enough for everyone. I would also put The Women of the Copper Country in this category by Mary Doria Russell. She is another sort of rebellious author. And this book is about a strike that happened in the Michigan, is it silver mines or tin mines? It might be tin, in the 1900s, like in the 1910s, maybe. And again, it's a labor struggle. It's a woman-centered. It's a just focusing on people who had to really fight for the basics, what we would consider the basics today. And it's just done so empathetically and, not candy coating anything. And people have their faults and people fail, and that's life, but it's still inspiring. So again, I don't see anyone talking about this book. I got it maybe the year after it came out, so not too late, but nothing on Booktube. So really encourage it. Love it enough for everybody. Yeah. Jim says Virginia Woolf is great for character driven. Okay, so I've only read her nonfiction. I have To the Lighthouse. I have a classic section up here, and To the Lighthouse is up there, staring right down at me. At some point, I'll get to it. Police procedurals for their plots. Yeah, there you go. Jim says, I loved Babel. I was less impressed with Yellowface. Ooh, okay. So I read the first of her original trilogy, and it was too violent for me. Babel is a little violent as well, but it was worth it. It was wrapped up in the plot, right? But Yellowface was on my list, and now Catabasis. We're going to have another debate on how to pronounce the title. I'm wondering if Yellowface would be the book that I wanted The Other Black Girl to be, because I didn't really love The Other Black Girl. It started out as one thing, and then it's just sort of veered off two-thirds of the way through, and it threw me off. So maybe Yellowface is what I was thinking it would be, and so it would not disrupt my expectations so violently. We'll see. For Cat Paw, Q5 is One Room in a Castle by Karen Connolly. See, you give me all these recommendations that no one is talking about. Authors that are known, but the books are very backlist, and I appreciate that. I don't know if you know this, but I put people's names next to the books that they recommend to me on Storygraph, so that when I do get to those books, eventually, I will go back to the person and say, hey, I love that book. So you've got your name on several in my wish list. And this is one I haven't heard of. One Room in a Castle, and I haven't heard of Karen Connolly. Very nice. What year is that published? Because you love the backlist. Let me know. Jim says, I liked how the magic system of Babel was focused on the difference in words and the nuances of translation, right? It was sort of like the same linguistics nerdery as The Memory of Empire it's a pseudonym of a historian. I can't remember. Or a linguistics professor, one of those. But Memory of Empire was so good, and it was also dealing with very language concept-y things about names and how you put together language and how that frames your thinking, which I thought was so cool. Just got me thinking about different things. Catpaw says, loved Babel, DNF Yellowface. Okay, second vote for that. All right, well, maybe I should align myself and just throw it off my wish list. Catabasis, her new novel, sounds intriguing. A Descent into Hell. There's even a trailer of the book on YouTube. Yes, A Descent into Hell of academia, I think, is the key twist. Yeah, I didn't see the trailer, but I saw a description recently because all I've seen is the cover, but the description made it sound good. To the Lighthouse. Hated that book. Okay, well, I don't know. I think I'll try it. Jim says, I read To the Lighthouse last week. Still processing it. Life, Death, and Mrs. Ramsey. Don't know what that means. We'll see. We'll see if I get to it and understand what that means later. All right, question number 7. What's a book you love so much that if someone doesn't like it, you know your reading tastes don't align? The book or books where a difference of opinion is a strong indicator of different reading preferences. In other words, what is that called? What is that called? I just had a name for it in my head. There's a word for the dating context where you say, oh, all I can think of is a ride or die. That's the opposite. It's a turn off. It's something that means turn off, but I can't remember. Okay, so for this one, I have two. One of them is Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. It's a nonfiction. She is a scientist, but she's also indigenous, and she marries the two approaches to living in the world in a way that is very encouraging and gentle and logical. And I feel like if you don't like that, then you've got something under the surface that needs addressing. So there's that. And then the other one I was going to put is Anything by Kathy Yardley. So this is where it came up, Jim. She has, so far as I know, 2 books, Role Playing and the one that's set off of Washington State. What's it called? It's about the cook. Jim will remember because I think he read it, or I've recommended it. So 2 books that are about like a romantic comedy with like other themes linked in. And again, like once you get over that cover, or it's a romance or whatever it is that will make you not want to pick it up, if you actually read it, I think everyone would enjoy like the witty banter and the interiority and the careful treatment of people's traumas kind of thing, processing. So yeah, what's it called? Is someone coming up with the name that I can't think of? The thing that's like, if you do this, you're dead to me. Okay, so the Connolly book paperback came out in 96. It's different. Connolly is Canadian from Vancouver. I like her early writings, but not the more recent. Interesting. Okay. Cool. I love it. Jim says it's set on the Isle of Skye, which might resonate with Margaret. To the Lighthouse. I think that's maybe why I gave it a chance, because I think Virginia Woolf. I'm trying to remember if I read some or started something else of hers that I didn't like. Yeah. Maybe that will be the thread that keeps me going. The only wolf I have read is Orlando, which I love. I've read it at least twice. So there's one. I read Orlando for a book club like 10 years ago, and I didn't really get into it. The ick. Hi, Laura. Yeah, that's kind of it. Yeah, that'll work. I think it's not the one I'm thinking of. Maybe the one I'm thinking of is from the meme that just says straight to jail. Straight to jail. Yeah. All right. So yeah, Braiding Sweetgrass, Kathy Yardley. So if that encourages anyone to try either of those, go right ahead and let me know what you think, if you think the right thing. Just kidding. Okay, question 8. What's in your trash pocket, in quotes? What books, tropes, or themes that you know are bad, but you love them anyway? Okay, so yeah, I do have comfort reads. And I'm going to say there's a historical romance fantasy. It's historical romance, but a time travel. So it's a contemporary, but then the woman goes back in time and whatever. It's by an indie author called Angela Quarles, who has her own indie bookshop in Alabama that is mystery themed. And she used to be on social media, which is where I knew her. And I don't see her there anymore for like the past 3 years. So I'm not sure. The bookshop probably just took over. And I don't think she writes as much anymore, but she wrote a series, and Must Love Breaches was the first in this series. And it's basically like time travel romances, right? So this is one where the woman goes back and she lands in, what's the young girl who's Byron's offspring who ends up helping with computing? Anyway, that girl, she is in the picture and she makes friends with this time traveler, and I think it's her brother or friend or something. And the cover is like a bare-chested man in breeches and like hands behind from behind, and I was like, okay. So I definitely have to roll my eyes at the cover. That's my trash pocket, is that it's a really good book and it deals with really true emotions in terms of feeling not good enough and feeling lonely and all those things, but it mixes in with time travel, and so it was very enjoyable. Um, so that for the cover is in my trash pocket. And then I would also say another romance author that is more in the usually in the tradition of like recycling tropes and stuff is Elizabeth Lowell. She's like a 1990s romance author. And I really liked Moving Target because it was your regular like actiony romance with a thriller aspect, but it also had a supernatural twist that she sort of related to her life and was like, I think this is my ancestors talking to me. And I thought that was really cool because it was one of those like, she's writing for a steady paycheck, but then also she said this really hit a nerve with me. And so I just thought that that was extra special. So I love it anyway. Yeah. Jim says, I want to read The Waves next by Wolf. All right. Does that fit in with any reading challenge, any readathons that are on the horizon? Or is it just like on the near term TBR? Yes, thank you, Ada Lovelace. I don't know. See, I know these things, and then the name just, yes. Thank you guys, both of you. Wikipedia. Lovelace was the only legitimate child of poet Lord Byron and reformer Anne Isabella Milbank. All her half-siblings, Lord Byron's other children, were born out of wedlock. Oh, okay. I thought she was the illegitimate one, but no. Okay. So she was sort of the featured real fictionalized character, and then everyone else was made up. It was fun. It was a fun one. So yeah, feel free to contribute your guys' trash pocket reads because I know y'all just had Garb August. You must have had some that you liked. Question 9 is, do you have any deal breakers? That's what I was trying to think of, Laura, and not the ick. It was deal breaker. It's in the tag. Why didn't I think of that? Something that, if present, immediately turns you off from a book. Okay, there's several of these. Secret Baby, definitely terrible. Won't read those if it's advertised on the front. A person who wasn't really dead comes back to life. I'm listening to an audiobook where this is the case, and it was so obvious. I was like, you're saying this so many times, he's obviously not going to be dead. So that was pretty annoying, but I'm still listening. It's okay enough. Cliffhangers. Connie Willis. I'm just going to say, you did me dirty on one book, so I'm not going to read another book. Connie Willis. Blackout. Nope. And billionaires. They're not ethical. I don't want them in my books. I'm not going to fall in love with them. Get out of my face. So those are my 4 deal breakers that I could think of right away. I'm sure there are others where I'm like, meh, but those are the worst. What about you guys? Let me know. Question 10, what's a strong opinion you have about a book released within the last year? So I went to Read Books and I went to sort by release date rather than read date and got my list here. Whether it's overrated, underrated, or just a take you need to share. Well, I share takes when I need to. So I would just highlight 3 here, and they're going to be all, no, 2 nonfiction and 1 fiction. So I think they're all just books that are underrated that more people should know about. The first one is The Indian Card, Who Gets to Be Native in America by Carrie Lowry Schuetpeltz. So this is someone who was in the federal government, and I don't know any longer if she is, but she is part indigenous and from a tribe in North Carolina that is a sort of special case, sort of in the gray area of like certification or whatever that's called for the tribal authorities. And she really does a deep dive because she's interested in her own background into the history of America's founding and relationship with indigenous nations and the administrative law history. And it's not as dry as that would indicate because she's really talking about how it affected different nations and how it affects her now and how like the legacy is still affecting people. Right down to current Supreme Court cases and the adoption industry, and it is an industry, and just like things that are really current, like decisions that are being made now that will affect indigenous populations in the US. There's some really crazy things I learned, like, when so I thought, okay, there's treaties, right? And for a long time, until like the 1880s, the US and the indigenous nations were treated as separate nations, and they had treaties between each other, even though they were subsumed within the American country landmass. But then they were made basically subservient, and they, I think we all know a lot of the treaties were ignored and like changed at will and this kind of thing to the disadvantage of the indigenous nations. Um, and then also like 1920 something is when they were all given citizenship. So there's this weird relationship of like, well, you're your own nation, but you're also citizens, and we can control you through that. But like, it's a weird, it's not a catch-22. It's just like having their cake and eating it too in terms of the federal government. So it's really helpful to know these things in order to make judgments about what's happening now, to know the background. So I found that to be really good. I wanted to have a conversation with Amy about it because she was reading it along with me, and then things got too busy in her life. So she might still be reading it a year later, but I'm not sure. So that's a really great one. The other nonfiction is Qualified, which I read a few months ago, How Competency Checking and Race Collide at Work by Sherry Dunn. That's a Portland, Oregon author, which is pretty cool. That is a book about it's not so much about the background, but it is about current practice and interpreting actions and hearing the different sides of um, of prejudice, basically, in the workplace. Now, I don't work in a workplace, so I can't put many of these into action. But for me, learning about the research that she's done, the experience that she's had, and like what could be done to make it better for Black people in the workplace so that there's not microaggressions, so that there's not discrimination that isn't seen, that's like invisible. I found that to be really interesting and important research to get out there. So that was really good. And then the fiction I had was All the Water in the World by Erin Caffall. And it's this interesting spelled name, Eirencaffall. And this is a dystopian thriller that is deep into the science and deep into the plot, if you're, looking for a plot-based book. And it's set in New York City, and there's basically the last survivors of climate dystopia, and they've all chosen different ways and different little knots that they trust to stay in, and everything else is sort of like raving and wild and dangerous. And the superstorm comes, and this one group that we're focusing on has to leave and has to try to make it to another safe place. And it's basically the journey there, and who survives, who doesn't, and what carries them through. And it was so good. It's not the positive look at climate change. So anyone who has been here and said, oh man, so gloom and doom when you talk about climate change, fair enough. I'm taking that under advisement. This is not any more positive. It's pretty scary, but it's kind of like Parable of the Sower. It's hopeful in a way. And I really liked the point of view, the perspective character, who's a young girl who seems to be on the autism spectrum. And so we get an interesting take on the world. And I listened to the audiobook version, which is narrated by, oh gosh, now I'm gonna blank on her name. Let me just look it up real quick for you guys. All the Water in the World. She's a great narrator. She's gotten so many Earphones awards. Eunice Wong, there we go. And she's big on social media, so you'll find her wherever you go. She was amazing. She was a really good narrator. So if you're down for the audiobook versions, definitely check that out. Let's see here. Anita says, one of my trope shows just did the villain won't die trope. Trope shows. Oh, okay. So one of your episodes where you talk about tropes, I'm guessing. Because I didn't see this one. The villain won't die. Yeah. This wasn't even a villain. The one I'm listening to right now, it was like the love interest. Like, You're not building him up this much and talking him about this much after he's been shot and not gonna bring him back. It was pretty silly. But it's okay. We're still reading. Jim says, I don't like resurrection tropes in fantasy. Yeah, this one has a very interesting take on a resurrection trope. It's definitely magical. And there's one character who gets resurrected many, many times and like turns into an animal because the brain sort of short circuits. It can't be resurrected anymore because of all the times. And so, yeah, this older woman turns into like a raging beast. Crazy. Didi says nobody liked the other black girl. Well, I mean, it started out so well. Like, why? I mean, it was a cool thing that they finished with, but like we could have had some hints. I'm just saying it could have been good. I don't know why. I don't know why they chose that. Greg says, I tried a Colleen Hoover novel. Well, gold star, because I will not. I will never. I had extremely low expectations, but it was so much worse. Oh, jeez. Was it Verity? I mean, I've heard only a little bit of the tea on Colleen Hoover, and I'm just not interested. Jim says, I'm planning to put Colleen Hoover on next month's TBR. Verity. Oh my God. No. Why? Why? She has enough money. You don't waste your time. I'm just saying. Oh boy. Unless you like a hate read, a rant read. That's not for me. Jim says, Colleen Hoover, Rebecca Yarros, oof, Sarah J. Maas, and Frida McFadden are the big best-selling authors of the past year. Yeah, I've seen a lot of people talk about Frida McFadden, including you. I think you've talked about several of her books lately. All the Water was great, terrifying, and felt incredibly realistic. Yes, agree. I'm so glad you read it. Yay. Yeah. And do you agree with me on the perspective character? Like, I loved she's like 9, 11, maybe 12, something like that. Young girl narrating this. And, you get her memories of like the before times and going through all this crazy trauma. And then also like, what does she hold on to? What is her anchor? It's really good. Right? The love interest. Seriously. He just comes back. Yep. Yeah, the girl. Love it. Okay, question 11. What do you look for in writing? What makes a book stand out to you? Is it prose style, themes, voice, structure, or something else? So I have lots of things that contribute, right? It's less like baking, more like cooking. So you can throw stuff in and experiment and like different levels of spice or starch or like things affect the flavor and the texture and whatnot. So humor, I'm always looking for humor in a book. Word choice and jargon, sometimes it's merited and sometimes it is not. Showing through body language. So instead of show, don't tell, I think it's more helpful to say when I'm reading a book and you get a real sense of what is happening under the surface. It's not dialogue. It's not, explicit, but you get someone's body stiffening or like a twitch or an eyebrow raise, even some of the more obvious things. And it just gives a bit more to the atmosphere. So I like the body language and tells, because if you can't see it because it's not a movie, like the book needs to give you some cues. I think that's really useful. Trusting the reader, so not spelling things out, but like leaving a breadcrumb trail that you can follow as a reader. Emotion, of course, I want to have some emotional engagement, and organization. A lot of times the thing that I will be surprised by or something will be new and novel and attract me or please me in a book is a different type of organization. If something is paced really well, but also like ordered really well, that can be a real trick. So I will often notice that if it's something novel. How about you guys? Verity is supposedly very similar to The Wife Upstairs by Frida McFadden. Not sure which came out first. I don't know. Coulda, shoulda, woulda. Yeah. Yeah. Question number 12. I'll catch up with your 11 answers. How do you decide what to read next? And this is like a whole tag on its own, right? But in case you haven't watched that one, do you plan ahead, mood read, or follow external factors like hype, recommendations, or arcs? Well, the obvious one, I don't usually do arcs. I do have recommendations, but they are sort of waiting for a long time. And I definitely don't do hype. I am allergic. But the thing that will kick something up to the top of the TBR, you know what it is. Cat Pod doesn't have to worry about it. That's a hint. What is it? Dee Dee says, awful if those are the best authors of the past year. Is that really the best we can do? I know. I know. Yeah. Yeah, I have a friend group on Booktube, and perhaps some of them will watch this, and they keep reading and rereading the ACOTAR books, and I'm like, I just don't want to. Like, there's a new booktuber I started following, and he's been reporting on Harry Potter books for the past few videos. And as soon as I hear him mention Harry Potter, I just stop watching. Like, I don't want to support that author. So same kind of thing. Like Sarah J. Maas, it gets to a certain point where, you're making millions, and I don't think you need to be talked about. Diversity of voices, Catpaw says, mood read. Yeah, I'm a big mood reader, but there is one thing that will kick it to the top of my TBR. Anybody know? Jim says a lot of those authors started by self-publishing. Interesting. I was just watching an interview on Emma Bennett's channel yesterday where she interviews Thomas Belitza, and he's been in music, he's been in acting, he's been in writing books, and his newest nonfiction book, he's kind of like self-publishing with Dale. He's a big how-to channel, but also does fiction writing, I gather. And his thing was, you need to do as a job those things that will promote and do business, network, market, practice. I picked it up in one watch, so that you can reward yourself with the thing you're passionate about. And this is, I'm digesting this, but so if you start by self-publishing, you've got to have a lot of business gears churning to get that big, right? You got to be constantly on the lookout for someone who will pick up your books, constantly on the lookout for someone who will get you more exposure. And so those people have to be very business minded to get that success. I think for me, at least, and for many of the authors I know, we love the writing, and we're making ourselves do the business. And it's less important to me, for sure, that I sell loads of books than that I enjoy doing the writing and do other important things with my life, like acting, community, stand up for things that I think are important, vote. Yeah. No, I mean, good guess. Historical fiction set in Scotland. That is a good one to get on the list. But the thing that kicks it up to the top of the list is if the library hold comes up. So when they're asking, is it hype, recommendations, arcs? Yeah, arcs. I think Jim knows on the digital ones, like you often have to get it in before like the first month or something for the marketing. But for me, it's library holds, because you got to pick it up, and then you only have a certain amount of time if it's a really hype title. So like you want to read it then. Oh my gosh, I took a picture of my screen when I had 0 library checkouts, because I haven't had 0 books checked out in a long time. Like years maybe. But I had to return them all to get them out of the house so that they wouldn't get damaged during the construction. So I was like, oh my gosh, pretty funny. But yeah, library holds get priority. Question 13, where do you get inspiration for your booktube content? It's just, this tag goes over everything. What sparks your video ideas? Other creators, trends, personal reading experiences? And I would say it's what I'm agitated about. See Climathon, see Agitation August, right? So there's that. There's things that I think are important to speak out about. And then there's also what's giving me hope, giving me comfort, capturing my attention in some clever way. Obviously, when I'm tagged by friends, those get done eventually. and when I have like big life changes. So there are vlogs coming in October for that. But yeah, that's kind of everything in life gives inspiration, just like for writing, same for content creation. What do we think here? Greg says, I use various Booktube events to narrow the choices from my TBR. Yeah, that will influence me as well, because I've got lots of unread books, and if I can't find like one that like really jumps out at me from the unending TBR, then I'll look at like, oh, what reading events do I want to participate in? Readathons like Shorty September or Tutor Tember or Octember, or what else is happening in September? Loads, right? So you can find an excuse to prioritize one or the other if you're just waffling. Lots of opportunities for that. Anita says, yeah, ARCs are always first on the reading list. That's why I don't read many ARCs. Yeah, it's a little bit dictatorial. And if you don't know, ARC stands for Advanced Reading Copy. You can also have ALCs, Advanced Listening Copy, for audiobooks, which I will often take advantage of. But yeah, I don't use NetGalley. That's what it is. Greg says, for example, Shorty September, there we go, helped me raise up short stories and novellas that are already on my shelf from H.G. Wells, Dashiell Hammett, Louis L'Amour, Robert Louis Stevenson, Willa Cather. An excellent list. Very nice. It's also not just short stories, but short books. So books that are under 250 pages, I think, is the limit. Jim says, I read about one ARC a month. It's a nice slit, like if you slip it into the list, right? There's a nice diversity when you put out the TBRs. It's nice. I also put a poll on my community tab of 4 books on my Kindle TBR for my subscribers to choose. Interesting. So you're putting your fate in the opinions of the masses. That's very brave. Oh, speaking of poll. So if you were here on Wednesday, I just announced that I'm having a new series that's called Pre-Order Picks. And I'm going to try starting with 2. And if it gets to be too much money, I'll go down to 1. But pre-ordering a book each month from a indie bookstore, and you guys are going to help me choose. So I put 4, because that's all YouTube allows, on a poll on my posts, my community tab this morning. So if you haven't, waltz on over there and vote for one of the 4. They've got little covers and most of the title, because some didn't fit in the 36 characters, but I'm sure you can figure it out. Jim says, To the Lighthouse was for Shorty September. Oh, that's why you just read it. Excellent. And Anita says, I get ARCs occasionally from Library Things, early reviewer program. Nice. So less pressure than NetGalley, I bet. Nice. All right, almost done with the first tag. Number 14, if you could make any book go viral right now, what would it be? A book you think deserves more attention, and why? I have 2 books on this. The first one is Nowhere Exactly. I know Cat Paw's heard of this before. It's not available where they are, unfortunately. Nowhere Exactly, on Identity and Belonging by M.G. Vasanji, and I listened to it on audiobook where Raul Baneja was the narrator. It has 13 reviews on Storygraph. 13. It's epic. It's a man who is currently living in Canada and working in the arts. And he's part of the Indian ethnic community in Canada. And he migrated with his family from Kenya in East Africa. So if you don't know, because of the British Empire's functioning, a lot of Indians from India were working in places in Africa that were part of the British Empire as middle class, sort of professional class, white collar workers for the British white managers. And so because of that legacy, there's sort of a connection. And this book, Nowhere Exactly, really dives into the identity, the background questions that form your judgment, your communities, your how people treat you, really. And so this connection between India, and I think it's especially Gujarat in Northwest India, and East Africa, and those traditions and how they changed for the new place, and then Canada, where he settled with his father, is very interesting to me. Because it takes us through time, it takes us through history, and it also takes us through like the art scene and the opportunities that he's had and tried to make. So I just found that really fascinating, but I don't think many people know about it. And the other book I would put on this is The Black Ghost of Empire, The Long Death of Slavery and the Failure of Emancipation. This is by Chris Manjapra, and I listened to the audiobook. It was by Robin Miles, narrator. And this has 130 reviews, which is more, but still not enough. This is a history book, and it's about the French, the Spanish, the Portuguese, and the English, and how they all had their own little empire gig going on over the centuries, how they had different paths to emancipation or abolition. And it talks about what the difference is and how it's important, and different timelines, and therefore different legacies in both the Caribbean as well as other colonized areas, including America. And I had heard obviously bits and pieces of this, but mostly Britain. And so getting the comparative across all the European colonial powers was really cool. Like, it was really helpful to contextualize. And like, I don't know much about the Caribbean. I've never traveled there. And so learning how to differentiate different places, like which were the oldest, which were the richest for the plantation owners, which had the rebellions, what happened in Haiti, like all these really great historical things that we're not taught in America, even though it's right there at the foot of the Americas, and like really is related landmass wise. So I found that really fascinating. And again, the difference between emancipation and abolition and how we go down those paths differently. So yeah, really valuable, and recommend to anybody who needs more hype. So who are some booktubers with reading tastes similar to yours? This is who I'm tagging, by the way. I'm going to tag Grace at Books and Cooks, Lena Norms, because not only does she have, you know, anti-fast fashion advice, do-it-yourself, maker vibes, but she also has some really great like climate change, environmentalism books, and literary fiction, including her own book, which is sort of a self-help / DIY life, Half-Arse Human, which I'm trying to get my hands on. I'm going to tag Daniela at Uncommon Reader, who gets both of these tags, just a preview there. Sandra at Pull Down the Moon. And then Lady Lovestead, that's Jessica, not necessarily the same reading tastes, but I want to tag you in this because I think you'll enjoy this tag. And I love how you run your channel. So I love to see that and wanted to tag you in something. So here we go. Okay, taking a break. The update on the... Oh, I just said this, but my outline says go over the update for the pre-order picks. There's a poll. It's on my community tab. Please go vote. I've got 4 books, and they're all going to be paperbacks released in the first half of October. And so what I figured out about this plan is that this means the way that I'm going to order it, I can only pre-order books from the first half of the month. It's not true now. So what's going to happen is I do the poll, close the poll, order the books, and then I have to wait for the next month for them to be released. Yeah, I do have to order first half of the month. So it'll be sort of like the first month is looking forward, and then the 3rd week or 4th week of the month is when I will feature the books that we did the month before. So it's kind of like this leapfrog thing. But hopefully you guys will be able to handle that. I don't think anyone's looking at my channel closely enough to get confused by that, but we're going to feature the bookstore that I pre-order the books from at the end of the month. So that'll be fun. And you get to hear about a fun bookstore in their local environment, which I think will be fun. So I'm going to put them up here. I think I spelled, yeah, Uncommon Reader has a underscore, which I forgot, but tagging these people and anyone who wants to do this, including Dee Dee or Greg or Jim, if you haven't done it yet. And yeah, if you don't want to do your own tag like Catpaw, you can just drop your answers. I know you dropped them in the chat, but if someone is coming up after, feel free to drop them in the comments. So very happy anyone's here and chiming in. Catching up. Okay. Jim says, when I was at school, we had a lot of Indian refugees from Uganda expelled by Idi Amin. Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. So then, yeah, you lived the background, right? Which is, it's strange to think of like this hierarchical system. But yeah, Uganda, India to Uganda to the UK. That is the path. Catpaw says the weight of ink and being ace. So I think this is the ones you want to boost that need more hype. The Weight of Ink, which you just read, which we agree is fabulous. It's a historical literary fiction, I would call it. And Being Ace, which is an anthology edited by Madeline Dyer, which I've heard of, but I have not read. So excellent nonfiction pick. Very cool. Greg says, my booktube twin is Alan of Alan's Reads. We both have small channels, so no one knows either of us. Well, we know you now, Greg. So don't get caught. Got to be on your best behavior now because we know who you are. Catpaw says, have you read any Susan Fletcher? Too romantic for me, but maybe a fit for you. I have. I've read one and I tried to get another, but it was harder to find. I think it was out of print. Let me, since we're on our little break, I'll take a sip. I can look up my red and then look up. It had a blue cover. That's not very helpful. It was fantasy. What was it? Was it time travel? Falcon in the Glass. There we go. It was kind of middle grade. I feel like it's middle grade young adult reading level because it was, yeah, young adult. Very simple language, but it was a local author, dare I say, and it was at the bookstore where I worked. So I thought I'd give it a try. And I did like it. And I can't remember what the second one I was trying to find. I think she has another book that is actually set in Scotland. And so I was like, I want to get this. But then it was out of print. Okay, both YA and adult. Yeah. Too romantic for you. Well, yeah, then it would probably work for me. Good recommendation. So thank you. And hopefully all of those tagged people will be by eventually. If you've got questions related to the tag or not related to the tag, side quests, feel free to ask. All right, pop my shoulder. I'm ready for the next tag, which is the high school required reading tag. But for this, I have to get the binder that I found. Okay. So it's not high school, it's grade school, but I found something in the crevices of the closet when I had to, well, I had to move the dresser and then I had to move the stuff, which is all memorabilia. And then I had to paint over the black mold. So there was a whole adventure in there, but it included this. Does anyone know where this is? Or can make a guess? It's from a magazine, and I just took it and put it on the front of a binder. I think Dee Dee's having dinner, but she would know. I think that's a hint. So high school required reading tag. This is an original tag created by Nicole at Noteworthy Fiction and Alex at Stay at Home Reader. And I was tagged by Booked Out with Pat. So this is 2 Pat book tags. And let's see. The first question is high school crush. Name a book you were assigned in high school and loved at the time. Have you reread it and did it hold up? Okay, so the obvious take for this is Jane Eyre. I loved it. I've read it so many times. And it kind of sort of holds up. It needed to be deconstructed. I still haven't read the Caribbean sort of deconstruction version of it. I'm a little afraid to. But yeah, looking back and realizing, well, all of the 19th century British novels that I've read are predicated on an economy that is run on slavery legacies and ill-begotten wealth. But I mean, that's capitalism, so it's across the board. What are you going to do? But it's important to acknowledge that and say, was this author thinking about those things? Was someone in the upper class or middle class, genteel poverty of the time, were they thinking about those things? I don't know. I mean, we didn't have mass communication, so how would they know about what was happening in the West Indies? There were tracts, there were people trying to get out the news, of course, which I've done research in, but I don't know whether it would have reached people in rural Yorkshire, for example. Okay, any guesses? Any guesses? Let's see. Jim just subscribed to my channel, so my subscriber count doubled. Oh, wait a minute. Greg, maybe you're new enough so that you don't have a... Yeah, here we go. Add as a moderator. There you go. Now you can post links. I think everyone else has the wrench. Yeah, okay, good. Dun, 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 dun. Let's see. Louisiana. Look at that. It's an album. Let's see if I have a table of contents. I'm pretty sure I was required. Yeah, there we go. All right, I used to go by Peggy. Yeah, the secret's out. 1992. This was a state report, and I got Louisiana, which was good. It was the second choice because we had just gone there on vacation for spring break, so I had all these pictures. Look at that, ladies and gentlemen. That is typewritten. Typewritten on a typewriter. Table of contents. So it's like taking me back. Since it's a high school sort of theme tag, I'm going back to grade school. Oh my gosh, look at this. Huey Long, like, oh my gosh. It's fun. Remember these? Remember these like purple? It's not Xerox, it's like Linotype or I don't know what. Anyway, so yeah, a lot of interesting crafts and school things, including family vacation pictures. And yeah, that's the family at the famous cemetery near someone's like voodoo influenced grave. We went canoeing, we saw alligators. It was a good time. And I got an A on the project, so you know, it started early. I just thought that was fun. I don't think many people have their 5th grade state reports, so you know, just classing it up around here. Jim says, I see you did the 10 untouched books tag. Yeah. Some of it was in New Orleans, some of it's in the state. So that front picture is definitely like elsewhere in Louisiana. It's like a plantation. Jim says, when I was a newbie booktuber, I attempted to read Jane Eyre in one day, which you've recently talked about. Tomorrow, I plan to do something similar with Cryptonomicon. Oh my goodness. So you're at like 260 and you said it's 900, so you have 700 pages, 600 something pages to go. Well, I hope you settle in. It's a long Saturday. Bring snacks, right? Oh boy. All right. Stop that. Let's continue with our high school required reading. Gym class. And if any of these prompts need explanation for the non-Americans, let me know. I think many of them translate. Name a book you were assigned that you hated. Have or would you give it a second chance? I'm sorry, Pat. I'm sure you're going to have stories and tales about this one, but Frankenstein. And no, I'm not going back because it's still too traumatic. Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I had, you know, like a really close typed version, and it was not fun. I had to look up so many words. I had to stop. I remember sitting on my bedroom floor, just like trying to get through it, a few pages at a time, and like making myself read 3 more pages, 2 more pages. It was just torture. So yeah. Question number 3, locker combo. Again, if it needs explanation, let me know. Is there a book you remember having to read but can't actually remember? Yes, there's plenty of these. I know Beowulf is in there. I know Edgar Allan Poe is in there. I know Thomas Hardy is in there somewhere, and I can't remember what I did read. Maybe short story, because I've read a couple of his novels since then, and it wasn't any of those. So I don't remember what I did read. Question number 4 is Cliff's Notes. It actually says Cliff Notes, but I think it's supposed to be Cliff's. Was there a book you were supposed to read but didn't? And the answer to this, I think you should all know by now. Please tell me in the comments. What is the answer? Was there a book that I did not read when I was supposed to in high school? Peggy, how do you tell yourself apart from your mom? Okay, so Greg knows this information because my mom was on some of the Agitation August talks, and her name is Peg. And we're both Margarets, but she goes by Peg, and I changed my Peggy to Margaret. So on some documents where we're both known as Margaret, it's actually an advantage. So, yeah, but that's definitely how I distinguish myself from my mom. Jim says 269 of 910, so 630. I mean, that's a stretch still for me. I would say 500, which is what her kid was supposed to do, is a stretch for me. So 630 would be really hard. Last day, I am not working. Ah! Well, bon courage, mon ami. Good luck. Catbot says, I honestly can't remember. The books we were assigned weren't much to my taste at the time, but I read several books a week outside of school. Fair enough. Yeah. Anita says, he hated high school book, Lord of the Flies. Yeah. Emotional trauma and will never read again. Yeah. I don't feel the need to revisit that one either. I just remember feeling really grossed out and just like, it was the ick because it was like the black tar inside people's souls. And it may be realistic, but like, why? Why would you bring that up? I don't know. Maybe you got to face things in order to know what's coming, but I did not enjoy that either, Anita. Greg says, I loved Frankenstein, but I did not read it in high school. I was probably in my 30s. Yeah, well, there's another question, and I'll bring up my word when I get to that next question. Jim hated Lord of the Flies too. Yeah, Jim Golding. I think he wrote other stuff, but most famous. Can I call you Junior? You know, I'm the 5th Margaret, so really you should call me Margaret the 5th, like royalty, but I'm not gonna respond to Junior. Sorry. Jim says, I've only given 4 books 1 star of over 1,500 books I've rated on Goodreads, and one of those is Lord of the Flies. Wow. Singled out for distinction. We love to see it. We love it. Capo says, I read Frankenstein last year and enjoyed it. It was very different from what I imagined. Yes, because the pop culture take on it has been so divorced from the original. So yeah, I could see that. Ha! Catboss says Lord of the Flies is my hated one too. Wow, everybody hates it. I wonder why. I wonder why they keep. Oh, William Golding. Thank you. I was close. I was close. I wonder why they keep assigning it. Probably because it's more accessible than Rousseau, but it gets at some of the same themes. I don't know. What do you think? Okay. Was there a book I was supposed to read but didn't? Anyone answer for me? I'll wait. Well, the answer is no. I'm a goody two-shoes, so of course I read all the books I was supposed to, even if I hated them. Question number 5. Moving on. Electives. Did you read just for fun? What books were you reading outside of your assignments? Okay, so after sophomore year, when I came back from a trip to the UK, all of Charlotte Bronte. We visited Haworth. We went to the Parsonage Museum, and I think I picked up every other Charlotte Bronte book I could. I was not an Emily fan. I was not an Anne fan. I was a Charlotte fan. So take from that what you will. And then I read them and I didn't really understand them because I wasn't ready. Like The Professor and Anne Shirley. Not Anne Shirley. That's Anne of Green Gables. Shirley. Just Shirley. But yeah, they were a little bit more dense. They weren't as much coming of age. They didn't take you through the childhood years, I guess. Maybe that was why I couldn't relate to them as much. But yeah. Question number 6, rebound. What book would you replace from the typical assigned reading list? And I don't know that we have a typical assigned reading list, except maybe Lord of the Flies, which everyone seems to have read and hated. So I didn't really have an answer for this. Question 10, teacher's pet. What book got you excited about reading for class? Okay, so this one, I think maybe... So I can't remember what we did senior year and what I opted to do, but we had to do a paper on a book, our choice. And I either did it on the book we had to read or chose to do another one by Edith Wharton. But I did my senior not American Lit. We did World Lit, British Lit, American Lit, and then we did something else for English, 12th year. Anyway, we read Edith Wharton, and I chose to do my paper on House of Mirth, and I got really into it, and I loved it, and I read a bunch of Edith Wharton. So yeah, it got me excited for class. Wuthering Heights? I don't know what this is an answer to. Oh, whether I didn't read it. No, we did not have this as assigned reading. I think I tried to read it after and was just disgusted with it. So yeah, not an Emily fan. I've read some of her poetry and I've read Wuthering Heights, and some of the poetry is good. William Goldman wrote Princess Bride. I have a hard time remembering which William G is which. I have to look them up every time. That's hilarious. Cat Paw says, I don't get why Moonstone gets so much hype when The Woman in White is so much better, in my opinion. Yeah. So I was reading these when I was writing my first novel, and I'm not sure what got me into them. But historical mystery, this is like the same time period, I guess. So I read The Woman in White, Wilkie Collins, several years before, and then someone reviewed my book Memories Hostage and compared it to Woman in White, and I was like, wow, what a compliment. That's awesome. So that was pretty cool. Greg says, let's exchange Lord of the Flies for the Princess Bride. There you go. Replace it in the curriculum. I don't know what high school kids would get out of reading The Princess Bride, though. I think it's more of a movie cult classic, right? Anita says, I accept those two authors as well. Yeah, most famous. Laura says, the first one at school I really loved was Maya Angelou. So good. Did you read Caged Bird Sings? I assume that's the most famous one I remember hearing about first when I was in high school. I know why the caged bird sings. And then Jim says, in school we had A Tale of Two Cities. Put me off Dickens for decades. And now you only have one left, right? Good Expectations would have been better. Yeah, I agree. Because Tale of Two Cities is like historical for Dickens, which is hard, like 2 eras back to read. But Great Expectations is more of like a child POV character, but still very frilly, right? Laura says, I had to do Great Expectations. Hated it, but loved Miss Havisham. Well, okay, so maybe Great Expectations still would have spoiled him. And then you'd come back years later, Jim, so it worked out. Yes, Caged Bird. Got it. Yeah, that's a good one. All right, question 8 is study hall. What was the most difficult book you read in high school, i.e. the one you spent the most time studying? And this is the one that I was on the floor looking up other words for. And I will say, I remember one word as learning it from Frankenstein and never forgetting. You know what that word is? Indefatigable. I swear it was used every 10 pages. It was just, I was going to read that word so many times that I was not going to forget what it meant because I had to look it up several times. Indefatigable. It means like it keeps coming at you. It doesn't stop. It's relentless. Crazy. Nails on a Chalkboard. What was the book that made you groan when you found out you'd have to read it again? And this is a strange thing. I think Pat addressed this in a video a few months ago. Like, we didn't generally repeat books because I didn't change schools. And like, why would you have teachers not coordinate the curriculum? So we didn't repeat books. Except except because it was a Catholic school, we did repeat the Bible. So I definitely didn't want to read that again. Number 10, extra credit. What book do you think should be added on to every high school reading list? And so I'm going to say The Black Ghost of Empire, just recalling from the first tag, the book by Manjapra that is about comparative study of colonial powers in Europe and how they affected nations around the world and the level of freedom and level of development in other countries. So that was really important. And I would also recommend The Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson. I have Cast as well, but I think Warmth of Other Suns is more relatable because it is about the 20th century migration out of the Jim Crow South to the West, the Midwest, and the Northeast, and how African Americans fared in their trying to get out of a terrible situation, and how it was still terrible, but maybe different opportunities cropped up, and it takes it through personal stories like family histories. And I just really loved that approach. So I think that would be really accessible for high school students. And oh, I forgot to put this up. The people I'm tagging. So I'll also make it a scroller so we can see it for a bit longer. There we go. I'm tagging Leslie because she is a kid who's just out of high school and might have some good input there. I'm tagging Daniela at Uncommon Reader, and I got it spelled right in this caption, so that's great. And Daniela is in Italy, but also loves France and comes to California quite often. So I'm looking at people who are in other countries and how their high school equivalents might have been different. So I'm also tagging Berna at Berna's Bookish Adventures. So I think that might be an interesting comparative experience because Berna is in Turkey, and I wonder if they have like a national curriculum for high school like we do. Not national, but for them it might be. And then some folks that I think might be close enough to high school that they still remember, like more detailed than I am, which is Hunter Salem, who I'm a new subscriber to, Books with Sam, who I'm a newish subscriber to, and Four Corners of the Page. Again, same thing. So these are some younger gentlemen who are on Booktube and may have more recent memories of high school. So we'll see if they pick up the tag and run with it. So that is the high school required reading tag. And that's me for the day at a little bit over an hour and a half. Longer than I was planning on going, I suppose. Does anybody have any announcements? So for the last little bit, I try to have some space if you have got stuff coming up or announcements that you would like us to be aware of, any new videos you're very proud of, any events that you're participating in, let me know. And let's see, checking in here. Indefatigable is a great word. Fair enough. Valid. I just didn't like seeing it every 10 pages in a 200-page book. Jim says, for O levels, we didn't have a single novel for English literature. 2 plays and some Chaucer poetry. Huh. O levels is ordinary. That's when you do when you're like 16. And I think 17 is A levels. Is that what it's supposed to be? Laura says, oh God, bloody Chaucer. Yeah, I had to read Chaucer's Canterbury Tales sophomore year, and it was not fun. It was not my favorite. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry. Greg's organizing a Walter Scott read-along. Ooh, which one? I have, like I said, my classics here, and I've got Metterlink. I've got Rob Roy. My Waverly is back in the bedroom. So I've got those two and very old. So which one are you reading? That's exciting. Jim's 5-year anniversary on Booktube is September 20th. Yeah, you're going back to some old videos and doing things for comments. So I know there's some like backroom reordering, some rummaging going on, which is kind of funny to see. which is cool. Are you doing anything special for the 5-year anniversary? Like an Ask Me Anything or something like that? I think I started in July, so I've hit my 5-year anniversary. I didn't do anything because I was too busy. So 16 for O levels and 18 for A levels. Okay, gotcha. Ivanhoe in November. Oof. Oof. I don't have that one. I probably have it on the ebook from back when I had like the classics from Kobo or whatever. Laura says it's such a nice bookshelf. Thank you. This is my rummaging. So for my 5-year Booktube anniversary, I have put in a new floor and got new bookshelves. But here's the thing. There's no way I could have known this, right? But I packed up 36, 35 boxes of books, and I started with the ones that I read. So all the read books got stored in a friend's garage, and all the unread books I put in bags and just shuffled them around while we were doing the floors and the shelves. So immediately afterwards, the first books I put on were the unread. Unfortunately, my previous system was that my read books went in the back and the unread in the front, so I could see what I had to read. Well, now that means that all the unread books that I put back, I have to take down so that I can put up the read books that I now have gotten back from my friend's garage. So anyway, I'll just be doing a lot of scurrying around and swapping books. It's kind of not, it's organized, but not very well right now. So I think what I'll be doing is like nonfiction to the left and fiction to the right. We'll see. We'll see. I'm still thinking it out. We've got a Tom. Hello, hello. Nice to see ya. Anita says, I have a new book coming in November. Cover reveal in a couple of weeks. Which genre, my friend? The mystery or the horror? I mean, November. So I think that's probably not a horror because that would have had an October release. Laura says, that's going to be a long job. Yeah, but I'll take it in little fits and starts and it'll be enjoyable. It's like the most enjoyable, right? Pretend librarian. Yes, that's a game I still like to play. Pretend librarian. Oh, boy. Well, I'll wait for Anita to pop her answer in. Ooh, Norse Fantasy. The book with the evil chicken. Okay, I remember you talking about the evil chicken and not getting it. So I'll have to look into that. That sounds fun. Coming out in November. Okay, so paperback? Is this going to be digital and paperback or? Laura says yes. I have a library stamp. So we still do make believe. I love it. I love it. Yes. Okay. Ebook and paperback. Well, maybe we'll put you on our November list for an October pre-order. That would be fun. All right. So excellent. Go over to my community tab if you're interested in voting for the pre-order picks for next month. And yeah, that is us for today. Happy Friday, everybody. Enjoy the weekend. Good luck, Jim, with the epic reading time tomorrow. And take care, everyone else. Happy reading. We'll see you again soon. Oh, nice. Okay, I'm still looking at comments. All right. Take care, everybody.